Ladies and gentlemen, imagine for a moment a crowded road. 95 out of 100 people walk in one direction, comfortable, safe, and familiar. But a small handful, just 5, choose a different path. That path is uncertain, sometimes lonely, often misunderstood, but it leads to extraordinary achievement. Today we explore what separates the 5% who succeed from the 95% who never do. Most people live their entire lives without ever realizing that they are following the same path as everyone else. A path chosen not out of deep thought, but out of habit, influence, and fear of standing apart. This is what we can call the majority trap. It is the way of the 95%. These are the people who simply drift. They follow the patterns of the world around them, not because they believe it is the best way, but because it feels safe. They go to school because everyone else does. They take a job because that is what they are told to do. And they work day after day without ever questioning if what they are doing is truly leading them toward the life they dream of. The majority trap is subtle. It convinces people that they are making choices when, in reality, they are merely following instructions handed to them by society. They believe they are thinking, but in truth most of their thoughts are borrowed. They are influenced by what they see on television, by what friends and family expect of them, and by the silent pressure of conformity. They do not set their own direction. They allow the world to set it for them, and because of this they find themselves walking in circles, never advancing beyond the average. If you were to stop someone in the street and ask them what their true purpose is, what their definite goal in life is, most could not give you a clear answer. They might mention a vague idea of wanting to be happy, to earn more money, or to do better, but when pressed for specifics, they fall silent. Why? Because they have never truly thought about it. They are so caught up in the routine of life, working, paying bills, seeking small comforts, that they have no time left to think about the bigger picture. And yet, without a clear destination, life becomes nothing more than drifting. Think of it like a ship without a captain. A ship set out to sea without direction will drift wherever the wind and currents take it. It may float, but it will never reach a meaningful destination. That is the life of the 95%. They allow circumstances to decide their fate. They react to life instead of directing it. And year after year they end up in the same place, wondering why nothing has changed. The truth is, the majority trap feels easy, it feels safe, it feels normal, and that is why so many fall into it. It takes no effort to follow the crowd. It requires no courage to do what everyone else is doing. But that is also why the crowd rarely experiences true success. They live lives of quiet frustration, working jobs they do not love, living paycheck to paycheck, and settling for far less than they are capable of achieving. The real tragedy of the 95% is not that they lack potential. Every single person has the capacity for greatness. The tragedy is that most never discover it because they never take the time to think, to decide, to choose a path of their own. They let the opinions of others dictate their reality, and by doing so, they surrender their power. Breaking free from the majority trap begins with awareness. It begins when you stop and realize that drifting is not the same as living. It begins when you recognize that success requires you to step off the crowded road and walk the uncommon path. The moment you take responsibility for your direction, you remove yourself from the 95%. You begin to think independently, to act deliberately, and to move toward a life of purpose. Most people never succeed because they never escape the trap of drifting with the majority. But those who do, those who dare to think for themselves and choose a destination, join the 5% who live life on their own terms, and that single choice makes all the difference. Most people go through life without ever realizing that their thoughts are the starting point of everything they achieve or fail to achieve. The truth is simple, yet it is often ignored. The way we think determines the way we live. The majority of people never take control of their thinking. They let their minds drift, they allow circumstances to shape their outlook, and they give little attention to the discipline of thought. This is why they remain part of the 95%. Intentional thinking is the dividing line. It is the practice of directing the mind rather than letting the mind direct us. It is the realization that every achievement, every innovation, every advancement in history began in the invisible world of thought before it took form in reality. The 5% who succeed understand this. They do not waste their thoughts on complaints, gossip, or distractions. They aim their thinking like a compass, pointing it toward their goals, their vision, and the kind of person they want to become. For most people, the mind is like an untended garden. If you leave a garden alone, weeds will grow automatically. It takes no effort for disorder to take over. The same is true with thinking. Negative thoughts, doubts, fears, and worries are the weeds of the mind. They spring up naturally when we do nothing. But intentional thinking is like a gardener at work. It pulls out the weeds, plants seeds of new ideas, and waters them daily with focus and attention. Over time, the harvest is inevitable. The 5% succeed because they guard their minds and shape them deliberately. Consider how the majority react to problems. When something goes wrong, they dwell on it. They replay it again and again, reinforcing worry and fear. But the 5% ask a different question. What can I learn? How can I use this? What is the solution? Instead of being trapped by their circumstances, they rise above them with the power of thought. This difference in response may seem small, but over years it creates two entirely different lives. One person lives in frustration, while the other builds success step by step. Intentional thinking also requires clarity. The 5% take time to decide what they truly want. They write down their goals. They picture their future vividly. They allow their mind to focus on one clear destination, and because the mind is a goal-seeking mechanism, it begins to find ways to make that vision real. The 95% fail, not because they lack ability, but because they never define where they want to go. They drift without a destination, and drifting never leads to greatness. Another aspect of disciplined thought is self-control. The 5% know that not every thought deserves attention. They refuse to dwell on anger, envy, or resentment, because they understand that those emotions poison the thinker more than anyone else. Instead, they choose gratitude, possibility, and growth. This is not because life is easier for them, but because they train their minds to filter out what does not serve them. Think about the power of focus. When sunlight passes through a magnifying glass, it can ignite fire. Without the glass, the light is scattered and weak. Most people live with scattered thoughts, jumping from one distraction to another, never staying with one thing long enough to see results. But the 5% focus their thoughts like that magnifying glass. They direct their attention fully, and over time, their focused energy produces extraordinary results. In the end, the quality of a life is determined by the quality of thought. Intentional thinking is not something you practice once. It is a daily discipline. It is the habit of catching yourself when the mind wanders and bringing it back to what matters most. It is refusing to live by accident and instead living by design. This is why success begins in the mind. It is the first step, the greatest step, and the step most people never take. Clarity of purpose is the dividing line between drifting through life and deliberately shaping it. Most people wake up each day with only vague ideas of what they want. They might say they want to be happy, successful, or wealthy, but when pressed for details, their answers fall apart. They cannot describe what success actually looks like for them, nor can they tell you where they intend to be in 1, 3, or 10 years. Without this clarity, life becomes a reaction to circumstances rather than a creation of them. People without purpose are pulled in every direction by the opinions of others, by the latest distractions, and by whatever seems urgent in the moment. But the few who succeed have a different approach. They sit down and decide with precision who they want to become and what they want to achieve. They define their goals in specific terms, so their minds have something to work toward. When you know exactly what you want, your energy has a clear target. You begin to notice opportunities that others overlook, and you start making decisions that align with your destination instead of drifting off course. Think of it like sailing a ship. A captain without a chart drifts wherever the tide carries him, but a captain who knows the port he is sailing toward can adjust his sails, endure storms, and still reach his destination. Life operates under the same principle. Without clarity, you are at the mercy of events. But with clarity, you can use those events, even setbacks, as tools to guide you toward where you want to be. Clarity of purpose also brings power to everyday actions. Small choices that once seemed insignificant suddenly gain weight because you can see how they either move you closer to your purpose or further away. This transforms how you spend your time, who you surround yourself with, and what you allow into your mind. Decisions that once felt difficult become simple because you measure them against a clear standard. If an action supports your purpose, you pursue it. If it doesn't, you discard it without hesitation. Another truth about clarity is that it creates resilience. Most people give up when obstacles appear because they were never truly committed to a clear goal in the first place. Their dreams were hazy, more like wishes than plans, so setbacks feel like confirmation that it was never meant to be. But the few who have defined their purpose see challenges differently. They understand that difficulty is part of the journey, and because they can see the larger vision, they are willing to endure short-term struggles. Their purpose acts as a compass that keeps them moving forward when others turn back. Clarity also commands respect. People are naturally drawn to those who know where they are going. Leaders, visionaries, and innovators do not stumble into their roles by accident. They become magnets for resources, allies, and opportunities because their direction is unmistakable. When you speak and act with purpose, others feel it. They sense that you are not drifting, and this confidence inspires trust. Above all, clarity of purpose brings peace of mind. Many live with a quiet sense of frustration, a feeling that life is slipping away without direction. But when you know what you are striving for, each day gains meaning. Even ordinary tasks take on value when they are part of a greater whole. Purpose gives you not just a reason to wake up, but a reason to push through the difficult hours. The truth is simple. Without clarity, success is impossible. With it, progress becomes inevitable. It does not mean the road will be easy, but it does mean you will always know where you are headed, and that knowledge alone places you among the small percentage of people who live by design rather than default. Most people believe that success is about feeling inspired, about waiting for the perfect moment when everything aligns and motivation finally strikes. They picture themselves waking up one day full of energy, ready to tackle their dreams. But the truth is that day rarely comes. Motivation is fleeting. It burns bright for a moment, then fades when life gets difficult. If you rely on motivation, you will only work when you feel like it, and if you only work when you feel like it, you'll never achieve anything of lasting value. The small percentage of people who succeed understand this. They know that feelings are unreliable, and waiting for the right mood is a trap. Instead, they lean on discipline. Discipline is the decision to act regardless of how you feel. It is the ability to say, I will do what I said I would do, even when it's uncomfortable, even when I'm tired, even when the excitement is gone. Discipline is not glamorous. It doesn't attract applause. But it is the invisible force that separates the successful from the unsuccessful. Think about the student who studies every night, not because they enjoy it, but because they know it will pay off in the long run. Think about the athlete who trains on cold mornings when no one is watching. Think about the entrepreneur who spends hours working behind the scenes, building something that may take years to succeed. These individuals are not guided by feelings, they are guided by discipline, and because of that, their results compound over time. The majority struggle because they confuse motivation with progress. They wait for the emotional high, and when it fades, so does their effort. They go to the gym for a week, then stop. They start a project with excitement, then abandon it halfway. They live in cycles of bursts and burnouts, never staying consistent long enough to see real results. This is why so many dreams die early, not because people lack talent, but because they lack discipline. Discipline is the habit of showing up day after day regardless of circumstances. It means honoring your commitments, not to others, but to yourself. And here's the secret. Discipline builds trust within. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you strengthen your confidence. Every time you break one, you weaken it. Over time, discipline becomes less about forcing yourself and more about identity. You no longer say, I'll try, you simply say, this is who I am. The paradox is that discipline, which feels restrictive at first, is the true path to freedom. Without discipline, you are a slave to your moods, your cravings, and your circumstances. With discipline, you gain control. You can build the health you want, the wealth you want, the relationships you want. You can choose your future instead of being dragged by the present. Discipline gives you the power to design your life. And the most powerful part? Discipline compounds. The small actions you repeat daily, waking up early, reading instead of scrolling, saving instead of spending, practicing instead of procrastinating, stack up over months and years until they form a life that looks nothing like the average. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is rarely one big decision. It is the accumulation of disciplined choices made over and over again. When you look at those who are admired, those who rise to the top in their fields, you might see talent, intelligence, or luck. But underneath all of that is discipline. The quiet, steady determination to keep going even when it's boring, even when no one claps, even when it seems like nothing is happening. Discipline is the reason the 5% keep climbing while the 95% stop halfway. So the question is not whether you feel like working on your goals today. The real question is whether you will discipline yourself to act anyway. Because in the end, it is not motivation that builds success, it is discipline. Silent, steady, relentless discipline that shapes the life you dream about. The willingness to sacrifice is one of the most profound qualities that separate those who succeed from those who never rise above the ordinary. Every great achievement has always come at a cost, and those who achieve it have been willing to pay that price in advance. Most people dream of success, yet they cling to comfort. They want change, but they refuse to change themselves. They want the rewards, but they resist the responsibilities. And this is why the majority never break free from mediocrity. Sacrifice is not about loss. It is about exchange. It is about giving up something small today for something far greater tomorrow. The student who studies while others are distracted with trivial pleasures may feel as though he is missing out, but in truth, he is investing in a future that will allow him to experience life on a higher level. The entrepreneur who works late into the night refining ideas and learning skills sacrifices ease and relaxation in order to build a business that may one day provide freedom for himself and opportunities for countless others. Yet when most hear the word sacrifice, they associate it with pain, struggle, and deprivation. They see it as unfair. But the reality is this: life always demands a price. The difference lies in whether we pay the price now, willingly for the things we want most, or whether we pay it later through regret, frustration, and lost potential. The cost of discipline is far less than the cost of regret. The 95% majority cannot see this clearly. They reach for instant gratification, for the fleeting comfort of the present moment, not realizing that every indulgence they choose steals a little piece of their future. Those in the 5% understand a simple truth. Nothing of lasting value is ever built without consistent trade-offs. You cannot sleep late and rise early at the same time. You cannot spend recklessly and save for financial independence at once. You cannot chase entertainment every evening and expect to master your craft. Every decision you make is a vote for the life you want or the life you will regret. And so, the few who succeed develop a mindset of long-term thinking. They ask themselves not, what feels good now, but what will bring me closer to the person I want to become. The willingness to sacrifice also requires courage. It means enduring misunderstanding, rejection, even ridicule from those who do not share your vision. When you refuse to follow the crowd will question you. They may call you obsessed, unrealistic, or even foolish. But what they fail to see is that obsession is the very ingredient that fuels extraordinary achievement. What the masses consider sacrifice, the successful consider strategy. The late nights, the skipped parties, the countless hours of study or practice. These are not punishments. They are the necessary investments that separate the extraordinary from the ordinary. Sacrifice also sharpens character. Each time you give up what is easy for what is necessary, you strengthen your will. You train yourself to endure hardship, to overcome discomfort, and to remain steadfast in the pursuit of your vision. Over time, the very things that once felt difficult become natural. What was once a sacrifice becomes a habit, and that habit becomes the foundation for success. The truth is simple. You cannot have it all. But you can have what you truly desire most if you are willing to give up what matters least. The 95% spend their days trading the permanent for the temporary, the meaningful for the meaningless, the lasting for the fleeting. The 5% make the opposite choice. And though the path of sacrifice is not always easy, it is always worth it. In the end, every life is shaped by the sacrifices we make, whether consciously or unconsciously. The question is not whether you will sacrifice, because you will. The question is only what you will sacrifice for: comfort or growth, distraction or focus, pleasure or purpose. The few who succeed understand this choice, and they choose wisely. That is why they rise while the rest remain behind. Responsibility is the invisible line that separates those who drift through life from those who rise to the top. The majority of people never succeed because they spend their time searching for someone else to blame. They blame their parents, their upbringing, their education, their government, or even fate itself. They tell themselves that success is reserved for the lucky, the privileged, or those who simply happen to be at the right place at the right time. This belief is not only false, it is dangerous because it removes the very power needed to create change. When you believe someone else is responsible for your situation, you have surrendered control of your life. The small percentage who succeed think differently. They may encounter hardship, but instead of asking, "Why me?" they ask, "What can I do about it?" This question transforms them from victims into creators. They understand that while they cannot always control events, they can always control their response. That simple shift gives them an advantage over 95% of the population. Responsibility is not about blaming yourself for everything that happens. It is about recognizing that you hold the power to decide how to act, what to learn, and where to go next. Consider how this principle works in daily life. The majority say, "I can't save money because the economy is bad." The few say, "If the economy is bad, I must learn how to create more value so I can increase my income regardless of conditions." The majority say, "I don't have time to pursue my goals." The few say, "If it matters to me, I will make the time." The majority say, "I failed because someone else didn't support me." The few say, "I failed because I did not prepare enough and I will prepare better next time." The language of the 95% excuses them from action, while the language of the 5% demands growth and improvement. Taking responsibility also brings with it an incredible freedom. When you blame others, you tie your happiness to forces beyond your control. But when you own your choices, you no longer wait for someone else to fix your situation. You become the driver of your own destiny. Every setback becomes an education. Every obstacle becomes an invitation to grow. You stop being reactive and start being proactive, shaping life according to your vision rather than reacting to life as it comes. It is worth noting that responsibility requires courage. It is far easier to point fingers than to look in the mirror. Accepting responsibility means admitting that you have made mistakes, wasted time, or allowed fear to hold you back. Most people avoid this because it is uncomfortable. But those who succeed are willing to face the discomfort because they know that change cannot come from denial. Only when you accept that you created your circumstances can you also accept that you have the power to create new ones. Another reason most never succeed is because they confuse responsibility with blame. They believe that if they admit responsibility, they must also carry guilt or shame. But responsibility is not about punishing yourself. It is about empowering yourself. If you are responsible, then you are also capable of creating solutions. You are not trapped. You are free. That is the essence of the 5% mindset. When responsibility becomes a way of life, everything changes. Opportunities that once seemed invisible begin to appear because you are no longer waiting, you are creating. Challenges that once felt overwhelming become manageable because you see yourself as capable of overcoming them. Instead of living in reaction to the world, you begin to live as a designer of your own future, and in time the world begins to respond to you differently, because people naturally respect and follow those who carry themselves with responsibility and strength. This is why the 5% rise above the rest. They refuse to give away their power. They choose ownership over excuses, solutions over complaints, and action over waiting. And because of that choice, they achieve what most never will. The reason most people never rise into the small circle of extraordinary success is because of how they see time. The average person is caught in the urgency of today. They think in terms of hours, days, maybe weeks. Their decisions are shaped by what feels good now, what looks appealing now, and what provides relief or entertainment in the moment. If there is no instant reward, no immediate payoff, they abandon the effort and look for something easier. This way of thinking traps them in a cycle of short-term gratification and long-term disappointment. The small minority who succeed operate on an entirely different level. They understand that nothing meaningful is built in a single day. They think in years, sometimes decades, and they are comfortable with the idea that the seeds they plant today may not bear fruit for a very long time. This shift in perspective is subtle but life-changing. Consider how a farmer approaches his land. He does not plant a seed and demand a harvest tomorrow. He tills the soil, waters the ground, protects the crop, and waits for the natural process to unfold. The 5% live by this same principle. They build skills, nurture relationships, save and invest, all while knowing that the true results will reveal themselves down the line. They are patient with their growth, but relentless in their effort. This way of thinking gives them an advantage that the majority never experience. While most quit after weeks because the reward hasn't appeared, the few stay the course. They know that consistency compounds. Reading a book each week may not transform you in a month, but in 10 years, you will possess the knowledge of hundreds of books. Saving a portion of your income may not make you wealthy in a year, but in 2 decades it could give you freedom. Practicing a skill for 1 hour a day may not make you a master overnight, but in time you will stand among the best in your field. Patience, however, is not passive. The successful are not sitting idly waiting for luck to arrive. They are working every single day, stacking small wins, creating momentum. They understand that time is like gravity. It will pull you one way or the other. If you waste it, time will bury you under regret. If you invest it, time will lift you higher than you ever thought possible. The difference comes down to vision. The majority do not see past today, so they trade their future for a fleeting comfort. They spend money before they earn it. They scroll for hours instead of learning. They choose pleasure instead of progress. But those who rise above it all can see years into the future. They imagine who they want to be and what they want to create, and they allow that vision to guide their daily decisions. The strength of their future vision is greater than the pull of present temptation. And here lies the quiet truth. Greatness belongs to those who are willing to wait longer than others. It belongs to those who can suffer the boredom of repetition, the discipline of routine, and the loneliness of long-term focus. It belongs to those who keep watering the seed long after everyone else has walked away. The 5% do not ask, how quickly can I win? They ask, how deeply can I build? And in the end, their patience writes the story of their success. The moment a person decides to join the 5%, something remarkable happens inside them. Their thinking changes, their decisions shift, and their vision becomes clearer than ever before. They no longer ask, will this work? But instead declare, I will make it work. This is the essence of becoming unstoppable. It is not about never facing challenges, because challenges are inevitable. It is about developing a state of mind so firm, so unshakable, that nothing from the outside world can permanently hold them back. Most people give up when they face resistance. The majority quit when they don't see immediate results, when success doesn't appear quickly, or when the road becomes too uncomfortable. But those in the 5% understand that struggle is part of the process. They know that temporary defeat is not failure. They view obstacles as lessons, as necessary teachers that prepare them for the greater success waiting ahead. This mindset transforms every setback into fuel, every delay into training, and every rejection into redirection. Becoming unstoppable begins with a decision that no matter how long it takes, no matter how many times they fall, they will not quit. This decision alone sets the 5% apart, because persistence is the rarest quality in human behavior. The majority will follow through only as long as things are easy. The minority follow through even when it is hard, even when they are tired, even when they are doubted. They understand that consistency, not intensity, wins the race. The unstoppable individual is not blind to difficulty. In fact, they see the challenges more clearly than anyone else. But instead of being intimidated, they are energized. Where the 95% see a wall, the 5% see a ladder waiting to be climbed. Where others see problems, they see possibilities. Their perspective is not ordinary. It is forged through discipline, sacrifice, and an unwavering commitment to their vision. This perspective is what allows them to endure when most would walk away. Another reason they cannot be stopped is their relationship with time. They do not rush success. They are patient, willing to plant seeds and water them daily without demanding instant harvest. They understand that everything worthwhile takes time, and they welcome the waiting as part of their growth. While the masses lose focus because the results take too long, the 5% keep moving because their belief in the outcome is greater than their fear of delay. This level of belief becomes a shield. Doubt from others bounces off them. Criticism does not break them. Failure does not end them. They might stumble, they might fall, but they always rise again, stronger, wiser, and more determined. Their identity becomes tied not to success or failure, but to persistence itself. They become the kind of person who cannot be broken because they refuse to stay down. In time, this unshakable persistence creates momentum. What was once hard becomes easier. What was once a dream becomes a habit. What was once out of reach slowly moves within their grasp. And eventually, the unstoppable mindset produces unstoppable results. Not because life became easier, but because they became stronger. This is why the 5% succeed where others fail. They decide that nothing, no obstacle, no rejection, no delay will ever make them quit. They understand that the only true defeat in life is surrender. As long as they keep moving forward, they remain on the path to greatness. They know that life rewards the relentless, and they choose every single day to be relentless.